I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions. Hi everyone, we're back on a Friday.
We are
answering questions, and I think I'm going to start with quite a broad one from a listener called Finton. And he says, hello, you pair of Elizabethan lutes. A very simple question for you.
A flute without the F. I love that.
Yeah. It's good. That's good. Very, very inventive.
Yes.
He says, a very simple question for you. What is the point of Vauxhall?
Oh, gosh.
Through my extensive research, brackets 45 seconds on Wikipedia, I've confirmed that they've essentially been rebadged Opels since the early 80s. I can understand the 80s and even 90s, they did have some individuality to their products. But for at least the last 25 years, they've just been rebranded Opels. Apart from brand loyalty for UK buyers, is there any other point in keeping an essentially dead brand alive?
Gosh. Well, of course, now they're not rebranded Opels, are they? Because they are part of the Stellantis.
They are, but Opels are now, you know, Porsches and Citroens and things underneath.
Yes. So it's sort of shifted again. And whenever we mention Stellantis, we must do the constant Ibiza party that is Stellantis.
This question reminded me of the fact that it's quite nuts that Vauxhall was much more independent in the 50s, 60s, into the 70s, to the extent that it had its own design studio in the UK, and it had its own test track that was bloody massive. Millbrook, it's still there. It's got a high-speed bowl. Yeah,
Millbrook was Vauxhall, wasn't it? Yeah. It's enormous.
Like the amount of investment that was made in Vauxhall, in particularly in the 60s, it's only in the last couple of years, I think, that the Vauxhall HQ, their old building, Griffin House in Luton, has been demolished.
Yeah,
and
I went there not long before it got taken down.
It had a design studio with a rooftop viewing yard that was quite big. You could, and it was still there. In later days, I think in fact the Vauxhall press office that we would have to deal with when we wanted to borrow a Vauxhall was in the old design studio, and the outdoor viewing yard just became this massive balcony. But they spent a lot of money, and it had its own, the whole sort of R&D centre there in Luton, and then this huge test facility up in Bedfordshire. It's like, it was a proper car company could develop its own cars, and yet, it then just had a sister company over in Germany, probably duplicating a lot of effort. And I guess that's what they realised when they then brought everything under one roof, and that roof happened to be Opel's. But
we own a Vauxhall, Rich, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do, don't we? Well, that's a really Opel-y Vauxhall, though, isn't it?
It's a very Germanic Vauxhall, yeah.
Very Germanic. What a straight six rear-wheel drive.
Yeah.
That's
and it has a feeling of solidity about it, which is one of the reasons why we like it.
But to answer Vincent's question about what is the point of Vauxhall, it is a good question, because if anything, well, it's just a rebadge, isn't it? Okay, so they essentially, for years, Opel sold here just happened to be called Vauxhalls because British people are more familiar with that as a name.
Yeah,
and it also, I think it probably, for the less sort of car interested person, they'd go, oh, I've got a British car because I've got a Vauxhall, even though fewer and fewer Vauxhalls were made here over the years. It is worth saying they do still make cars in this country, which Ford don't, for example, and a lot of people sort of somehow think Ford is British.
That is definitely worth mentioning.
Since they became part of Eurodance collective Stellantis, you do sort of go, well, what is the point of them when you could probably get an equivalent Peugeot or Citroen maybe for a bit less money? And there seems like there's an awful lot of overlap.
I think the danger of having a big conglomerate like Stellantis, is that everything melds into one, and so the brands lose their individuality, which means it's harder for marketing people to sell them on the merits of them being different, and so then you are simply looking at the bottom line like, oh, well, the Citroen's the same as the Peugeot, which is the same as the Vauxhall, and that one's £1,200 this month less to buy, to sign up to, so therefore I'll just bloody do that. Or, yeah, Citroen's just introduced more interesting colours, so I'm going to do that. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I think that's a really dangerous place to be, actually.
The Peugeot... what's the sort of the Rifter? Do you know that?
Yes.
The vanny
I love the Rifter. Yeah.
The Rifter, which I don't know if I used this years ago. I wrote a joke for Grand Tour about, because Rifter to me sounded like a Glaswegian word for twat.
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
It's not been a Rifter. And but the Rifter, the electric Rifter, was going with this absurdly cheap lease deal, sort of £150 a month or something, with not much money down. And I was a bit like, fucking hell, I mean, that's, if you needed just a very functional, boxy electric car, that feels like a bargain. But I was very curious, and I was like, well, there's a Vauxhall version of this. I can't remember what it's called. And there's a Citroen version.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I just had a look to see if they were all doing the same deal, and they weren't. And it's like, if you wanted the Vauxhall Citroen version, it was sort of like £600 a month or something. You just go, so that's where the difference is. Who's got a finance offer running, particularly with those vans, because they really are conspicuously the same thing, just with different badges on.
In a way, that's a race to the bottom, I feel. And you remember when the British car industry was badge marketing a lot of things, I think it worked initially, and then eventually everything drowned.
Yeah.
Everyone drowned one another.
I imagine with Stellantis, there's a lot of the same sort of politics that went on with BMC, BLMC, whatever it was, that there had to be a Morris version of this Austin or whatever it was, because they were separate dealer networks, and there'd have been a mutiny if they hadn't, for a period anyway, and then they're sort of trying to sort this out and consolidate, which I'd notice I can't remember what it was originally. I think it was a Peugeot Citroen dealer that I used to drive past not far from here, and that now, very confusingly, is a sort of all Stellantis dealership, which seems to be what they're trying to do. And it still scrambles my brain when you see Fiat next to the Peugeot logo.
Yeah.
You go, why are they? Oh, because they're the same company now. And this garage isn't actually that big. And it's now selling sort of 5 different makes of car. And you go, oh, that's hard work, isn't it? But because when someone walks in and goes, hello, I'd like a medium-sized SUV, please, what do? I suppose you do just point them to the one with the best offer on it at that point.
Yeah. And I, as we're talking about this, and this is serious, I don't know the answer. But what I do believe is that there needs to be more individuality. So there needs to be a stronger identity. And if you look at what Renault has done, Renault has really, I think, dug deep and gone, let's look backwards a little, but let's make the desirable interesting and unashamedly close to its country of origin, and feel proud of that. And I feel like there are companies like Vauxhall and Citroen and Peugeot who have such an amazing heritage that does need to be dug into a bit.
But what's Vauxhall's version of that? Because Peugeot, it's traditionally you go, well, Peugeot's, once upon a time, they were sort of very upright and staid, but famously quite tough, sort of 504s and things like that. And then they became stylish and nice to drive. That was their thing, wasn't it? The drive of your life was the whole thing. And you can sort of lean into that a bit. And people, I think there's still a generation of people who have very fond memories of 205s particularly, but then also 106s. And
the lion goes from strength to strength.
Yeah, so you've got a bit of stuff to work with there. Now, Citroen obviously is being slightly quirky, but also comfortable, and probably there's a sort of Frenchness there they can lean into in the way that perhaps Renault have done a little bit. And so I think you could see how you could market all that, and you could make cars that fitted into some sort of historical template that made sense. But what's the Vauxhall equivalent?
I don't know, because I really...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, because in the 80s I thought the Vauxhalls were far superior to Fords, which is controversial, but I have always much preferred them back then.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm trying to think sort of, what's the public perception, not the car nerd perception, because we get into... Vauxhalls always used to have sort of very lusty 4-cylinder engines, didn't they? I mean, not even getting to your red top stuff, but just a bog standard, like... 1.4 litre Astra always felt like it had a really strong engine compared to whatever rattly cack Ford was putting out.
Yeah.
That's that sort of point in the 80s and 90s. And, but what's the broader thing about Vauxhall? What's a Vauxhall brand value in the eyes of the average person in the street?
Is it just value? And is it
just some car?
Yeah.
And
but should they...
people, I feel...
Should Vauxhall do something like World Rallycross, and they take a
no, because normal
Corsa
people don't watch it. It's like it's such a niche. No motorsport, I believe, is that good at selling cars to a broader audience. Even F1, I think, is overstated the benefits of being an F1 in terms of actually flogging hatchbacks and SUVs. But
I agree. I agree.
I don't know, and I think Vauxhall. That Corsa, the original Corsa at the start of the 90s, was, at the time, a really distinctive and attractive car because it was early doors on that very sort of soft kind of sculpting of the panels that became ubiquitous in the 90s. But at the time, that Corsa was a strikingly good-looking car for a little car, and it was kind of cute, which meant it was unthreatening. They sold a shitload of those cars because it looked good, and they sold it well with those adverts with supermodels and stuff.
And I was in Lisbon a few weeks ago, and I'll talk about it on the main podcast, but I saw bucket loads of those first-gen Corsas still.
Really?
Bucket loads, just parked around the streets, the narrow streets. And I took an unhealthy amount of photos of them, which I will show you. But yeah, it's a very good question, Finton, and I think we should probably keep thinking about it.
I don't know. That's the thing. It is actually quite hard. What is the point?
It's really
hard.
hard
To cease to exist tomorrow. What's the loss?
Yeah,
jobs obviously for people who make and sell Vauxhalls. We're not willing that to happen. But yeah, what do we lose from the car landscape?
Right, we're going to rattle on to another question. This one is from Martin Laver. Martin says, hello, you pair of perfect prattle purveyors. I've got a question stemming from a recent almost de-spec car. In March, I'm going on a 3-week rally to Scandinavia and the Arctic Circle. The group will be covering some 4,500 miles on the continent. The perfect car for the journey seemed to me to be an old Volvo, and I found and bought a 91 plate 940 pale blue saloon with spoiler, with an unusual history. It was originally bought by someone in the forces who was based in Germany, and as such it was sold to him by Volvo's Tourist and Diplomat division. After many years of faithful service to and from Germany, it was sold to the chap's brother and I bought it from him. It's in excellent condition with no rust anywhere. It also had an exquisite 90s blue velour interior, also in top condition. Pictures attached. This is almost the same spec as the Volvo that my friend Simon Browse has got, which he bought, I think, before it was going to be scrapped. And he's owned it for like 12 years, and it just is so beautifully built. Having delved through the car post-purchase, I've found, amongst other assorted spares in a plastic folding crate a la parents of the time, and a double cassette tape of Princess Di's memorial music. I've also I didn't know that was a thing. So he's got a crate that came with the car with a double cassette tape of Princess Di memorial music, a near perfect bound road atlas of Europe given only to the tourist and diplomat customers of Volvo. I have also a pair of original Tourist and Diplomat keyrings. I couldn't be happier with my purchase, although I suspect a 30-year-old road atlas might not get me out of a scrape when 5G fails in deep Sweden. Listen, Martin, 5G won't fail in Sweden. I've driven around all of the mountains around Norway, and I had 4G constantly. It was an embarrassment to the UK. But Martin, who is a patron, thank you for being a patron, Martin, finishes this with his question. His question is, what's the most interesting find when routing around a second-hand car that you've bought? Best wishes, Martin. Oh, the most interesting thing. Well, I found a couple of good keyrings. I used to collect keyrings as an 80s child. I think many of us probably did. Yeah. So I found a couple of really good. I remember finding a fantastic Spirit level.
Oh.
It was a miniature Spirit level on a keyring of a car that I bought, and I can't even remember which car it was. But I ultimately found the Spirit level more interesting than the car. And I think when I sold the car and I kept the Spirit level keyring, I must have it somewhere. But it was from a place, or it was no, it wasn't a place. It was a brand. It was an advertising brand, but it was so teeny tiny. It was just beautiful. I got given, and I don't know whether this is, it's not like an official memento. When I bought my Australian Ford Fairlane, it came with the heaviest gauge length of boat chain and padlock. To this day, I've never seen a more substantial padlock that the guy would chain around the steering wheel and the brake pedal, I think. And when I bought the car, he said, "Oh, do you want the chain?" And I kind of went, "Yeah, okay." And then when I lifted the chain out to put it in the boot, it was like 30 kilos for like a metre of chain. Yeah, so that was pretty weird. And I've kept that padlock and chain. I didn't sell it with the car. Yeah, because I'm weird. Basically,
well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got anything to match that. I don't think I've ever found anything sort of particularly memorable, particularly sort of stuff that hasn't been declared to you by the seller. They've gone, "Oh, I'll chuck that in." You know, it's sort of.
A friend of mine bought a car with a CD because left CDs were quite common, weren't they? And it was a Scores of the Movies CD. And it had a really wide variety of music soundtracks on it. And I have still got it because I thought it was so cool. He gave it to me and went, "Oh, I don't want it. You can have it." I still listen to it.
Now, this was declared, but when I bought my Panda 100 horsepower, there was a CD in the stereo, which the seller went, "You can have that," because it was in there when I bought the car. And I think it was like, now that's what I call music 105 or something. And then on my way home from picking up the car, discovering that the radio didn't work, so I just stuck this CD on. It was a mixed bag, but then it turned out, because some oaf had cut the aerial connection off the back of the stereo, that until I bought a new stereo off eBay and sorted out an auxiliary cable to plug my phone in, everywhere I went, I just had this. Now that's what I call music playing. It wasn't that good in general. There was more shite on it than there was good. So, I wouldn't claim it as a brilliant thing to find in any car.
That's when you needed Diana, Prince of Wales's tribute double cassette.
I'm still like...
I'm looking at the photo of it now. It's amazing.
Surely not an official product of any sort, like to raise money for charity, just some sort of awful, mawkish cash-in.
I don't really know. But what Martin has sent these photos, and the key ring that says special delivery, tourist and diplomat sales, and it's got a profile picture of a Volvo 940 saloon, with the outline of a world globe behind it. Oh,
I'm curious as to what tourist means in that context, because diplomat, I get it. Okay, so you're working overseas, perhaps, or British forces, as it sounds like the first owner of this was, and then you were able to buy cars, weren't you? And I think there's sort of all sorts of advantages to that. But tourist, so you're on holiday and you decide to buy a Volvo.
Yeah, I think so. It just wins you over, and you just throw caution to the wind, and you think, You go, should we go out and have tapas tonight? No, I've got more pressing business. Going to go and buy a Volvo quickly.
Oh, hey, actually, since we're talking of Volvos, I just want to do a really quick, this is just a callback to a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the Volvo EX30. And I'd seen a couple of people sort of visibly having problems operating their EX30s because of the quite infamous electronic and software issues that car has suffered. And I was saying I'd sort of firmly advised a friend not to buy one because it felt like it was a bit unfinished. A listener called Marco from Italy has written to us and said he's the owner of an EX30 rear-wheel drive extended range. You know, he admits he might be a bit biased, but since June 2024, he's done 24,000 kilometres in it. So, you know, he's obviously got to know his Volvo quite well. He says, I think your comments were a bit harsh. I tend to agree that out of the box, it was an unfinished product, and I won't forgive Volvo for that. But they've been releasing at least every 4th or 5th month an over-the-air update, and the car has kept getting better. He says it's got plenty of torque for the corners. Setup's a bit soft, but it gives you a very nice ride. The infotainment's a bit Marmite, but if you're used to Android phones, as he is, it's pretty straightforward. And the voice control works pretty well. He says that in 24,000 kilometres, it's given no headaches, and he's generally had a nice experience.
That's good.
Well, there we go. In defence of the EX30, there's Marco. Says his is fine. Can I move on to a message from a listener called Robin, who says, hi guys, I purchased a 2005 Moonrock Grey Honda S2000 in fantastic condition from a private engineer seller in 2022.
Engineer of
said he carried. He's an engineer and he's a private seller, I think is the gist of that.
Yes.
But, so this chap said he'd carried out an oil service for him, as in for Robin, before he picked up the car. Shortly afterwards, I spanked it onto the A3 when at 9,000 RPM, I couldn't see in front, behind or left and right due to the smoke grenade that ensued. I now know that the oil filter came loose and deposited 4 litres of oil all over the place.
Oh, no.
The engine was kaput. I spent £6,000 on a replacement. The engineer hadn't done the oil filter up properly.
Oh, no, that's
slowest
shit.
of hand claps, says Robin. This brings us to April this year, when on a similarly spirited run on the A331 near Farnborough, the engine went into limp mode. I had the car recovered to the local Honda specialist that fitted the replacement engine. They've been busy, so it took until a few weeks ago for the news to come through that the engine had detonated itself.
Oh, no.
He thinks due to an over-rev. The block is cracked and the internals in bits.
What?
So, herein lies the problem and why I'm asking for your help. The car owes me £20,000. But is worth circa 14,000. Mm-hmm. Do I, A, spend 6 to 8 grand replacing the engine yet again, the cost of which has gone up in line with the S2000's popularity, or do I, B, sell it without an engine for £3,000 or £4,000? Either way, it's not a good outcome. It'll either be a £26,000 to £28,000 S2000, or I lose the 20 grand I've ploughed in less the 3,000 or 4,000 I'll get back. Thank you, please, Robin.
Gosh, well, first of all, Robin, that's rotten. That is rotten luck. The fact that the previous owner changed the oil for you, but clearly wouldn't have done it on purpose, not tightening the oil filter enough. That's horrendous.
Because you imagine, isn't it? You go, oh, this guy's an engineer and he's done an oil change for me. And it's just like, you go, well, that's thoughtful. That's brilliant. How you'd just be so excited you're getting a good car here because it's been looked after.
Yeah. Just
wouldn't think. I bet this guy hasn't tightened up the oil filter properly.
No, that's really bad.
Jeez.
And do you know what? You're lucky you didn't crash. If 4 litres of synthetic oil all over the back wheels, bloody hell. So I am of the opinion, like my good old dad always is better the devil you know. also can't bear the idea of selling a car for a vast loss, because it just means I just couldn't do it. So I'm of the opinion of going again and putting another engine in it. I would definitely look at some alternatives. I mean, the fact that both your engines were irreparable, that is rare. Normally,
Yeah.
I mean, bloody hell, that's quite a hard... I don't want to sound bad, but it's quite a hard engine to kill. But, yeah, so I think in line with the fact that that the popularity of these cars continues to rise, and if they are not rotten, and if they've been really well looked after bodily, because the body's actually the harder bit than the engine a lot of the time, I would say go with it, because, yes, you have got to swallow a particularly large pill to rebuild the engine again. I think it will pay off ultimately, and I hope that you'll actually enjoy the car in the process, because it'd be a shame if you're constantly just hating it because of what it's done.
I agree with you. I suppose my opening question though for Robin would just be, do you still want to own a Honda S2000?
Yeah.
Because if you do, and you would miss having that car in your life, then I totally agree with you. Best the devil you know. Everything else about that car is known. If you still want an S2000, then you might as well just spend the money fixing up this one. Yes, it's painful, but it's no more or less painful than having to let a broken car go for, 3
or 4 grand would be hideous.
Yeah,
absolutely
it would,
hideous. Yeah. If you've fallen out of love with the S2000, and this is another curveball, but this is what someone would do if you sold it for 3 grand, 4 grand, is do the engine with a view to not keeping the car and really going to town on the rest of the condition of the car and make it so nice, and then put it through an auction like the Piston Heads auctions. Piston Heads are our pals, and then let someone else see the car and buy it as good as it could almost get S2000. And you might break even if the car is in that good a condition, and I don't know how good it is. But then you'll be like, right, I've put some effort in, but the car is really, really good. But I don't want it anymore. Sorry.
Or go completely nuts and spend an absolute fortune doing some kind of elaborate engine swap on it.
Well, you could do, but people swap these engines into other stuff, don't they? It's very rare that the S2000 has a different engine. But
yeah, but they obviously, in a way, the engine is the selling point of that car, and you'd be silly to put anything else in there because it's so revvy. But it was criticised for a lack of torque.
Yeah,
so
it was.
You could
supercharge it,
do something.
NSX V6.
So. Yes,
I mean,
would
imagine.
That fit, I wonder.
Shitting hell, imagine that.
Is the engine bay wide enough for?
I couldn't tell you.
V6. I don't know. I wonder if someone's done that, but
gosh,
wouldn't it?
Good.
And then it's still Honda, but it's just.
But it's
of course
mad engine.
You'd have to do all manner of fiddling about because NSX it sat crossways, so gearbox and things might be interesting, but not impossible. Or some kind of other Honda V6. I don't know. There's nothing as good as an NSX. I bet an NSX V6 though is quite a pricey thing to buy, isn't it?
Probably. This will be the bit when we get a letter from Robin in about 12 months' time saying, I've spent £80,000 on my S2000 and it was great for about 4 miles.
Yeah.
And now I don't want it. What shall I do? And we'll go, this one seems to ring a bell.
For some reason, I took leave of my senses and decided to put a Lamborghini Gallardo V10 into the front of it, and it's completely ruined the handling. Also, the end of the engine pokes through the dashboard and it's very hot.
People do it.
Okay, well, I don't know. I suppose that, yes, ultimately, best the devil you know, and maybe you just need to take a deep breath and spend the cash and then enjoy the car. But, if you can't enjoy the car because you're just thinking it's 2 engines have gone in this, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, what next? Yeah.
I still think maybe you'll fix it up and sell it for what you can get for it is better than just letting it go for.
I agree, because there's a very strong desire for them. Oh,
there is, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Honda, you probably know this, Robin, make outboard motors. They do a really compact V8. Really compact V8. Can you imagine if you were to get that? Obviously, you'd have to have water cooling. But imagine if you could put an outboard Honda V8 into an S2000. That would get global recognition, and then suddenly the car is infamous and therefore probably valuable.
It's quite a high capacity engine, is it not? We saw one, didn't we, at Goodwood?
We did. It was huge. Well, it's tall. It's a very different shape, I think, to a car V8, or it seems that way.
Yes.
Yes, it was. We did see one at Goodwood. I took a photo of it because I was trying to describe to my brother the size of it.
Yeah, I just remember the hugeness was the most striking element of it. But then is it not also because is it which way round is it mounted? Is it not sort of standing on its nose? So the crank is sort of is
vertical.
Is vertical.
It could be. We need to get some
anyway, these are problems that Robin, I'm sure, can work through with his Honda specialist. Robin, do let us know how you get on fitting an outboard.
It seems to me that Otosot is supposed to be where we answer questions, but we answer questions with more questions. So but then sometimes questions raise more questions. If you have got a question for us, hello@smithandsniff.com. Put Otosot in your subject line. If it is a question, makes it easier for us to find them. We'll be back next Friday with more useless advice, possibly relating to outboard motors. Until then, goodbye. Thanks, everybody.